Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Seabirds of the Galapagos, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Luis Vinueza. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Over to you, Luis.
Thank you very much, Rob, and thank you for attending this presentation about the seabirds of the Galapagos. And as you know, Galapagos is a very good place to observe them. 19 resident species in the islands, and I'm going to talk today about the most charismatic ones. Okay, so here in this picture, we can see one of the most charismatic ones, the blue-footed boobies. And we are going to learn a few sort of highlights about each one of the birds that I'm going to describe. I'm going to tell you where you can see them, when they nest, and what they feed. And so I'll also be talking a bit about their status, because a lot of these birds are being affected by climatic changes. Okay, so let's start. This is me. I am an expedition leader with Nazca since 2022, but I've been living in the Galapagos since 1995. And I was lucky enough to study seabirds when I came first to the islands. And I went to the island of Española, where I spent 7 months camping on tents with other scientists to monitor some of the species that I'm going to talk today, including the wave albatross, the Nazca boobies, and the blue-footed boobies, which are some of the birds that I got the chance to work. So in Galapagos, when you come with us, you are going to have the chance to see these birds as we hike, as we drive the tenders, or as we kayak, or as we snorkel. Because as you know, some of these birds are going to be diving underwater, such as the Galapagos penguins and the flightless cormorants. So this is really a paradise for their observation. And as you know, most species here in Galapagos are very tame, so we can get very close to them. As you can see, and this is a slide that just shows us a juvenile frigate bird just taking up the hat of one of our guests. And this is the island of Nazca. This is another place that we visit because here we have a very good concentration of seabirds. And this is one of our boats, the lemon tree, and here is a Galapagos penguin. And this is on the central island of Santiago, which is where we find a few of these charismatic species, and very unique, by the way. And so why is it that we should care about seabirds? First, because, you know, our planet is covered by 70% of water, ocean. So that's very important. However, the diversity of seabirds is not very high. There is only 300 species, more or less, out of the 9,000 species of birds that we have on Earth. But, you know, their abundance is very high in some locations. And in some locations, as the Galapagos, they are also important because here we have waters that are very productive because of the result of upwelling, which is the uprise of cold nutrient-rich waters. And this is very important for the survival of the birds. And sometimes these nutrient-rich waters get to be poor, like during El Niño events, and this is when we have some issues with the birds that I'm going to show you today. And so, as I said before, they are very important in the system because they are basically top predators, and they consume a variety of organisms, from very tiny zooplankton to, you know, very large fish. And also, they are important part of the food web because they are also the source of food for other organisms, as I'm going to show you. Okay. And they also have been able to conquer most of the ecosystems on Earth, including also the Arctic and the Antarctic. Okay. And so what's very interesting is that these birds come to mate, reproduce, and they do so in islands like the Galapagos that offer them a safe haven, free of some predators. So this is an example of some frigate birds in the island of Nazca again. And they come to these places, as I said before, to mate. And this is where we have the chance to observe these very unique behaviors, as I'm going to show you in a few videos. And as I said before, they also feed in the ocean. And so usually we can see feeding aggregations as we go in tender. And in this particular case, we have an association of blue-footed boobies. And I'm going to show you a video here with some pelicans, right? And some sea lions around. And so this is on the western part of the archipelago, where the waters are very productive. So big fish, big schools of fish come to the surface because they are being chased by sharks underwater. So this is something that we can also observe as we visit the islands. And also we can observe the interactions that they have with humans, which are really important. In some instances, they might compete with us for food because we can, fish. We compete for resources with them. But they also help us in many ways to, for example, get rid of the discards of fish. And this is the fishing dock in Puerto Ayora. So there you can see a variety of seabirds, including frigate birds, pelicans, and lavagos, just feeding on the discards of what the fishermen bring to the landing dock each day. This is also something that our guests get to enjoy when we visit the town of Puerto Ayora. And also, as you know, seabirds are important because they bring to the land nutrients. So these white spots that you see on the rock are the results of the poop of seabirds that accumulate there. And these nutrients are very important for the growth of the vegetation in the islands as well. And as I said before, they are also the food for other organisms, such as the top predator of the terrestrial system, which is the Galapagos hawk. And this Galapagos hawk is going to be preying upon small birds, including the chicks of red-footed boobies, blue-footed boobies, frigate birds, but also the short-eared owl, which will be preying upon small storm petrels, very tiny storm petrels that we have in the island of Genovesa. So they are also an important source of food for other organisms as well. And also very attractive for scientists. So the island of Española, for example, again, where I used to work, is a place where David Anderson from Wake Forest University has been studying these birds for more than 35 years. And these long-term studies really allow us to sort of understand the dynamics of these organisms under these climatic changes. And so these are a few of the tools that we will be using in the field to measure the birds, to put bands on them, to record the weight, the size, the growth of the organisms, of the chicks particularly, which is what we monitor every single breeding season for, as I say, for few species, including the Nazca boobies, the waved albatrosses, and the blue-footed boobies. So this is a group of our guests just walking along one of our trails in San Cristobal, again showing you how close can you get to nature here. And in fact, our presence facilitates the establishment of nests here because blue-footed boobies nest on the ground. So as we walk along these paths, we clear that of vegetation and they like to nest right there as we pass by, as you can see. So when you come to Galapagos, please bring good binoculars, good cameras or phones, but also bring good protection for this gear because you will be exposed to the salty water as we travel back and forth to our destinations. Right? So I'm going to start with the Galapagos pen. Okay? This is probably one of the most specialized unique creatures we have here in Galapagos. And this is the only penguin that lives at the equator. And this is what makes it really unique. All the other species live south of the equator. And so they are here because of these upwelling nutrient-rich waters that I mentioned to you before. However, their numbers are very small, and they are very susceptible to climatic changes such as El Niño. That is why they are in danger. The population is only 2,000 individuals. Okay? And as you can see, they live very close to the shoreline, right? That's the habitat. And they nest in holes and crevices very close to the shoreline as well. And they hunt very close to the shoreline, very, very close, all right? So this is a map that shows the distribution of penguins on the sites that we visit, okay? So as you can see, most of the places where we can see them are to the west. So if you are a person that wanna sort of look for penguins, mostly, and flightless cormorants, you should choose the west route. And that's because the water on the west also is colder than the rest of the archipelago. It's at least 2 to 3 degrees Celsius colder than the rest of the archipelago. All of these red dots that you see there are places that we visit where you can see penguins. Okay? And also in the island of Santiago, but here we have a very small population. And we've seen a few individuals in Florida, but they don't nest, or at least we haven't seen that recently. Okay? So this is another map of the Galapagos that shows you where the majority of the population is located, and that is along this green line that you see is where 67% of the population of penguins is located, but also around the sort of black lines that tells you that most of the population is located to the west of Isabela, which is the island that has the shape of a seahorse. And that one is next to Fernandina, which is to the west, okay? Is the most western island of the Galapagos. So here again, we have a couple of penguins. The first one, the larger one is an adult, and the one that is closest to us is a juvenile. Okay, so when we see juveniles, that's a good sign because that means that the conditions in the water are good. They are not gonna reproduce if the water temperature goes higher than 23 degrees Celsius. Okay? They don't do very well if they got water that's warmer than that.
Luis,
and they hunt for their prey in the water. Yes.
Hey, Luis, we're getting a little bit of echo from your microphone. Is it possible if you could stay closer to it so that we can hear you better?
Yeah, is that better?
That is better, thank you.
Is better now? Okay, great. All right, so as you can see in this picture, we have some penguins hunting for little fish. And so what they are looking for are these small anchovies and sardines or black striped salenes. And so a fish that basically come in big schools and they swim very fast. They are like torpedoes because they have these modified wings which have fuse bones. And this is what they use to propel themselves in the water. Okay. And as I said before, they don't go very far from the shoreline because, you know, in deeper waters, they might find some predators like sharks. Okay. Again, they come to the shoreline a lot and they do a few trips during the day to hunt for food, and they come back to the shoreline to rest. In between these two, we can see a tiny marine iguana. And in the background, we have the Chinese hut, which is another location that we come and visit. And this is located in the island of Santiago, in the central part of the archipelago, okay, where we have at least 5% of the population of penguins. And so one thing that these penguins do before they reproduce is that they molt. And that's what we call a catastrophic molt, because they basically lose all their feathers. But before they do that, they are gonna eat and fat up and reach, you know, a size that is twice as much as the size of other penguins that are not molt. And they molt because their feathers basically wear down, okay, because of the action of the sun and the water, they wear down. So when they turn a bit brownish, they might start losing their feathers. And then they start breeding, okay? And so this is a group of penguins on the western part of the archipelago where they get to be more abundant. And what is interesting about these penguins, besides the fact that they can swim in the water very fast, is the fact that they are also monogamous. And so this is very important because in that way they can reproduce at least 3 times in a year if conditions are good. So this result of monogamy basically helped the couple to be better at basically raising kids, right? And so the population might recover when we have colder periods or very strong winds. So as I said before, the population is very susceptible because it has a restricted distribution and also because it's affected by climatic changes, by warmer temperature, which implies basically that their food disappears. So they cannot feed their kids, and sometimes they starve to death. That's what happened during the El Nino in 1982, 1983. And El Nino events are basically periods of time which when the water warms up 5 degrees Celsius above average for very long time. We're talking more than 10 months. So when we have a very strong El Nino event, the population might decline dramatically and might even go extinct. Right. The next one that I want to talk is the wave albatross. Right. So this is also very unique to the Galapagos. So animals that only live in Galapagos are called endemic to the island. But they are not only endemic to the Galapagos, they are endemic to Española, which is one of the islands of the Galapagos that is closest to the Humboldt Current, okay, because that's where they go and feed. Because the Humboldt Current, which is close to Peru, is also very productive. And Española is the first island where they can find a safe ground to nest. Okay, so they come to Española in the month of, at the end of March, more or less. And the arrival of the male and the female is very important for the establishment of the couple. Okay? So this is also the largest bird of the Galapagos. The wingspan of this bird is 8 feet, okay, and they can reach up to 4 kilograms in body mass. And so as you can see in this map, if you look to the right south, you are going to see a red dot. That is the tiny island of Española. Okay, Española, as I said before, is also a wonderful place for the observation of seabirds. Go to Española when we do the west part, the west itinerary. Okay, so as I said before, a paradise for the observation of waved albatrosses, especially from the months of March to January, because then in January they leave the islands. Okay, and they come back late in March. So have that into account if you want to see them. This is an albatross in flight. And as I told you, they travel all the way to Peru to hunt for food. Their main source of food is squid, okay? And when they are raising the chick, they are gonna do these trips of 25 days, okay? When the chick is very little, one of the adults is gonna be with them while the other travels far, far apart to bring food back. And so basically they come back with this very digested food, which is basically the digested squid, and they regurgitate this liquid to the chick. Okay, so it's amazing that they do these trips of 25 days. And this is a couple of wave albatrosses. On the left, we have the female, and on the right, we have the male. The male is slightly larger than the female, as you can notice from this picture. And they have a very complex dance that I'm going to show you. Okay. This was just taken in September. And this is very important in terms of pair bonding. So this couple that you see there dancing basically didn't produce a chick this season, and what they are doing is trying to make very strong links between them, and so try to next time. And so what is good is that these birds live approximately 35 to 40 years, and they try to reproduce every year. Unfortunately, they fail a lot for some reasons that I'm going to explain. So this is an egg of a wave albatross, and in many seabirds, we have biparental care. Okay, both male and female are gonna be involved in incubating the egg, raising the chick, and feeding the chick. And these birds, for some reasons, I'm gonna explain a few, roll the egg. Sometimes they might roll the egg for more than 120 feet from the site they originally laid the egg. And some people believe that this might be because of infestation of parasites, or during wet years like El Nino, because of the infestation of mosquitoes that might bother them. Okay. It's incubating the egg. Okay. This is an example of an egg that has been abandoned. Okay. As I said before, that happens a lot, unfortunately, and especially during wet years. And this is a chick. Okay. This is a chick, and a chick is gonna take more than 170 days to, basically leave the nest. And in the map on the right, you can see the trajectory of an adult that had a GPS track. Okay, you can see how the birds travel all the way to Peru, and then they come back to the Galapagos to feed the chicks with this very thick soup of calamari, squid. And this is one of my colleagues working in Española Island. This is back 1996, looking at who mates with whom, because back then, people thought that these birds were monogamous for life. But we find out that that's far. Actually, we found that 20% of the chicks that a male is raising are not genetically from that male, but from another male that was involved in extra populations. And that's why I was explaining to you that pair bonding is very important. Because if the male arrives earlier, he's gonna try to copulate with every single female that arrived to the land, forcing copulations sometimes in order to secure, a chick in case your partner doesn't come back. So as a result of this failure in arriving at the same time, there are going to be some extra paired populations out of the marriage, as I would say. And so 20% of the chicks don't belong to the parent that is raising, right? So that's very interesting. And so, as I said before, wave albatross have a very restricted distribution, only next on Española, and a few pairs on Isla de la Plata, which is a small island very close to the coast of Ecuador. But the problem is that they travel all the way to Peru, and there they might be subject to the bycatch of the fisheries that happen there. And we know for a fact that that's what happens. So the population is declining because of that reason, but also because of the climatic changes like it. Okay. The next one is one of the three species of boobies that I'm going to show you. And this is the beautiful red-footed boobie. Okay. These birds plunge dive to capture their food, and they have very special adaptations in order to do this. For example, their eye is protected with a membrane that closes up as they hit the water. They also don't have open nostrils like other birds, but small slits at the base of the beak where the air gets through, so that they don't get water in as they plunge dive directly in the water. They also have air sacs in their heads to push on their foot. And so these boobies sometimes might plunge dive all the way from 90 feet high to the water, pursuing schools of fish. And so these boobies the red-footed boobies, the Nazca boobies, and the blue-footed boobies basically go for schools of fish. So I'm talking about anchovies, sardines, flying fish, right? And the red-footed boobies are the smallest of the three species, and they are pelagic foragers. That means that they have in waters that are deeper than 600 feet. And their main diet is squid and flying fish. Okay. And so where is the best place to see them is Genovesa. Genovesa is where we have the largest population of blue-footed boobies, red-footed boobies in the world. Okay. Genovesa is the island in the north. Okay. North of the equator line, you are going to see a red dot, tiny island of Genovesa. That's another paradise for the observation of seabirds. And we go to Genovesa when we do the east bound for the most trips. Okay. So it's a very remote location. It take us a few hours to get there, at least 7 or 8 hours, okay, of navigation. But it's worth, definitely worth. And then the other place to see them is in Punta Pit, north of the island of San Cristobal. And San Cristobal is the island that is closest to the main. Okay. Is where the capital of the Galapagos is located. Okay, so what is special about the red-footed boobies is that they nest on trees. This is different from the blue-footed boobies and the Nazca boobies. These other two species nest in the ground. And they may be nesting trees for a good reason. They are the smallest. Okay, and the other two species might be aggressive towards them, especially the Nazca boobies. The Nazca boobies are very aggressive. So in this way, they avoid competition. Okay. So they, as I said before, nest on trees. And so they have to build a stable nest. Okay. And there are two morphotypes, the brown morphotype that you just see here and the white morphotype. Okay. This is the same species, but 5% of the population has this white morphotype. And these two groups can breed no problem, but the brown color is dominant over the white. Another difference of these red-footed boobies is that they also have longer webbed feet and prehensile feet so that they can, hold onto the branches, right? And this is the white morphotype, and this is a full adult. Okay. And this is an adult with a chick, and the chick that you see there is approximately 15 days of age. Okay. Now they are going to incubate the egg for 45 days, also taking turns, male and female. And then they are going to raise one kid for almost 15 months. Okay. This is the longest than any other of the two species of boobies because they go very far out at sea to hunt for food. Okay. That's the reason. And so because of this, they can only afford to lay one egg and raise one kid every 15 months. This is another chick. And this is the look of the juveniles. So they don't have red feet, okay? And they are very curious and naive. So this is our boat, the petrel. It's one of the boats that we use as well. And they come onto the boat because they are very curious. Sometimes they land on your head. And so they are going to take 5 years before they start reproducing, before their feet turns red. Okay. And in general, they are doing very well in terms of numbers. Also, their distribution is very wide, not only the Galapagos, but they are in all tropical oceans. And so the population is more than 1 million around the world, and the Galapagos is more than 250,000. But the Galapagos is the largest population around the world. Now here we have the blue-footed boobies, right? And so these boobies are intermediate between the red and the Nazca boobies in terms of size. They can reach up to 1.4 meters of wingspan, okay? And they are coastal foragers. Okay? They also plunge dive for fish like the red-footed boobies, but very close to the shoreline. And so that makes a huge difference in terms of their breeding strategies. Okay? The fact that they go very close to hunt for food allows them to be opportunistic breeders. So when conditions are good, they might start breeding. Now, what we know, unfortunately, is that their numbers are declining. Okay? And the largest population around the world is in the Galapagos. And also the population is more restricted than the red-footed boobies. They only live in the eastern tropical Pacific. And so that implies that they only live from Peru to California. Right? And the largest population is in the Galapagos. The population in Galapagos declined from 20,000, more or less 20 years ago, to less than 7,000 these days. And so the reason of this is climatic changes, because they feed on sardines. And sardines are less abundant because of warmer oceans. Okay, so this is the distribution of the blue-footed boobies. And so as you can see, we can see them in a few places that we visit, either if you go to the east or to the west. The best places to see them are the island of North Seymour, okay? So it's just north of Santa Cruz, almost at the center of the archipelago, okay? The island of North Seymour, north of the, which is the second largest island of the Galapagos. North of Santa Cruz is a very good place to see them, as I said before. Also in Española, okay? Also in San Cristobal. San Cristobal is another very good location. This is again to the east of the Galapagos, okay? And to the west as well, but not as large breeding colonies as the ones we have in the east. And so this is a group of blue-footed boobies hunting for little fish. And so they are plunge diving, and they are plunge diving on big schools of fish, of little fish in terms of size. Sorry for the background music, but this was recorded in a very busy place where every single person that comes to the Galapagos has to cross to get to Santa Cruz, okay? And the main reason of their feet, the color of their feet, is because it's very important in terms of mating, okay? The color of their feet is a very good indication of how good are they as providers, because the color depends on the amount of carotenoids that bioaccumulate in their feet. And these carotenoids, they get it from the fish they eat, and the fish get it from the plankton, okay? And so this basically is going to change the color of their feet as they feed, or not, okay? And so the ideal color is this turquoise blue that I'm going to show you, because there is a lot of variation. So in terms of mating, male and the female can recognize this, and it's very important in terms of mate selection. So here you can see a variety of blue-footed booby colors, okay? And the more turquoise are better than the duller blue feet, okay? And they've done experiments with these birds where they don't allow them to feed for 2 days, just in 2 days. So as I said before, this is a very good indicator of how good are you as a provider. And here we have a picture of two blue-footed boobies. A female is largest, so it's closest to us, and the male is farther. Okay, so in this particular case, there is a sort of a dimorphism in body size where the females get to be larger than the males. And this seems to be an adaptation to make the males more sort of efficient at capturing little fish to feed the chicken. So, you know, do shorter trips than the females, because females have a larger beak, they travel farther or capture larger fish of the same species. And so the male will probably hunt more efficiently on smaller fish closest to the colony, so that he can go back to the nest to look at the chicks. And because they hunt very close to the shoreline, they might lay up to 3 eggs. Okay, so this is different from the red-footed boobies. Remember, red-footed boobies only lay one egg. These can lay up to 3 eggs. Okay, and so this is a male trying to attract a female. So this is what we call sky pointing. And in this particular picture, you can see them showing their feet and also their wings. Okay, and this is a little dance that we recorded in the island of North Timor, just north of Santa Cruz Island. Okay, and so then, as I say, for lay 3 eggs, and this is the bring of guano that forms as the birds, the adults, poop around during the incubation period, which it takes 41 days. They lay 3 eggs with 4 days of difference. Okay, and so the egg that was laid first is gonna hatch first, of course, and it's gonna have a huge advantage with respect to the second egg, which is gonna hatch 4 days later. And so if conditions are good, you know, both chicks might survive, but if conditions are not so good or they change, the largest chick is gonna bully the youngest one and is gonna basically get most of the food. And so when conditions are bad, what happens is we have what we call a facultative siblicide, which is the fact that the oldest brother basically kills the youngest one by denying them access to food. Okay, and so this is the result. At the end, it's just one chick, and that is important to recognize the difference between these red-footed boobies and Nazca boobies. Now, these are the Nazca boobies. These are the largest of the 3 species of boobies. This is the one that I studied for my undergrad dissertation in the island of Hispaniola. And these are the different locations where you can see Nazca boobies. Okay, the best locations being again Hispaniola and Genovese, the best nesting colonies. Okay, they form big colonies and they also have a seasonality. Unlike the blue-footed boobies that are more opportunistic, these are more sort of settled. They have a set sort of time where they reproduce, and this is synchronized with the abundance of resources. And so in this particular case, again, the male is trying to attract the female. And as you can see, they nest on the ground, okay? But what is very interesting about these birds is that they lay 2 eggs, but only one chick is gonna survive. And the reason why they lay 2 eggs is because they have very low hatching success, okay? And so as soon as the second egg hatches, which is also 4 days of difference, the oldest chick is gonna push the youngest one out of the nest. And the parents are gonna know nothing about it. Okay, so this is what happens 100% of the time. So why they lay 2 eggs is because they have very low hatching success. Here we can see a parent looking after the chick, and so at least one parent is gonna sit with the chick until the chick is at least 30 days of age. So the chick that we see here is probably 20, 25 days of age. This is a bit older, very fluffy, very healthy, very happy. And this is the aspect of the juveniles by the time they leave the nest. So that happens more or less 120 days after they hatch, okay? And these are 2 happy Nazca boobies that stay together. The population is also being affected by climatic changes like El Nino, but not as much as the blue-footed boobies, okay? Now, this beautiful bird is very unique because it's the only gull that hunts at night, okay? And these are not scavengers. They actually hunt for their food, and they feed on squid, okay? And so that's why they have big eyes, and they have also sensitive elements in their eyes that allows them to hunt at night. squid. This is where the different colonies are distributed. There are a fewer on the west. Most of the colonies are on the east. And the best places to see them are Española, North Timor, and Genovese. Okay. They reproduce year-round, and you can see the little chick in this picture is being fed by one of their parents, okay, with a regurgitated squid, okay. They are going to incubate the egg for 35 days, and then they are going to raise the chick. And that's another picture of them feeding the chick. And this is another picture of this beautiful couple raising the chick. Okay. Now, this is another wonderful bird, very special in the Galapagos, the flightless cormorant. Okay, this is the only cormorant out of the 29 species of cormorants that lost the ability to fly. And this happened through a mutation that just happened to be positive. Okay, they have a very restricted distribution, more restricted than the Galapagos penguin, because we only find them on the west. Okay, only on the west. And so you are going to be able to see them in the different spots that we visit in Isabella and Fernandina. And they basically pursue their prey by diving. So they have very powerful webbed feet. And they can go as deep as 180 feet deep to capture for a variety of organisms, including octopus, eels, fish. And they have a very interesting mating system in which the female actually fights for the males, okay? And so this is a typical dance. As I was saying, the females actually fight for the male, but once the pair is established, they are going to build a nest, and they are very particular about what they pick to build their nest. And so in this particular case, they decided to build it with an algae called sargassum, but sometimes they use sea stars, sometimes they use sea urchins, sometimes they use plastic, unfortunately. And what is very particular about the mating system is that the female is gonna abandon the male if resources are enough, so that the male raises the chick. And this usually happens when the chick reaches the age of 70 days. Okay? If resources are enough, then the female abandons the male and tries to copulate with another male to increase its fitness. Okay, and so this is what we call sequential polyandry. Okay, and so they lay 3 eggs, but usually 1 chick survives. Okay. This is another example of an adult looking after a chick. And then here we have the beautiful great frigate bird. All right, these are known as the pirates of the sea, and this is a beautiful male. Okay, these males have these red pouch that they inflate to attract the females. And, these red dots are the best places to see these colonies. And again, the best places for us are going to be Española, North Timor, and Genovese. Okay. This is the female, and so you can see they have a very strong sexual dimorphism. And this is because there are more males than females in this particular species. And this is a male in flight. And what is really amazing is that these birds can spend weeks at sea, okay? Weeks at sea, without coming to land. And this is very cool because they have special adaptations to be able to rest. I'm going to tell you a bit about that. In this slide right here, you can see a frigate bird, a female, that has been equipped with a sensor that is going to sort of measure the activity of the brain as they fly. Okay, and they found that as they fly out of the Galapagos, you can see how far of the Galapagos they go on the right panel. Okay, and they can sleep as they fly because they can shoot half of their brain down for at least a minute every hour. Okay, and in that way they can rest for a bit. So this is particularly a very cool finding that was done here in the Galapagos Island, from the island of Genovese. This study was done in the island of Genovese. Again, this is a male frigate bird in the island of North Timor. In the background, we have the little islet of Daphne Mine. And this is a couple of frigate birds together. All right. This is the magnificent frigate bird. It's the other species. But courtship is very similar. Okay. Again, this is a male and a female. The male is on the right, the female is on the left. And this is an adult male looking after the chick. Look at this tiny chick. Okay, this is a female. And then this is a chick of more or less 15 days of age. And this is a juvenile of the magnificent frigate. All right. And so obviously there is a lot of ground to cover. I couldn't put all the seabirds that I wanted to put because of the space, but my closing comments are that the Galapagos is a great place to observe seabirds. That timing your trip is important. For example, if you want to see albatrosses, because they are not present all the time. Okay. Now, also, most species have restricted distribution or low population numbers. So don't expect to see, thousands of penguins because we don't have that. The best places to see seabirds in general are Genovese, Española, North Timor, and San Cristobal. And we go to these 4 islands. Okay? And to observe penguins and flightless cormorants, the Western Islands, okay, the islands of Fernandina and Isabel. Okay, and so this will be my closing comments. Thank you, Rob.
All right, thank you, Luis. Now, before we started with the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. Okay, let's get to some of these questions. So do you recommend a zoom lens to photograph birds?
Yeah, very good binoculars. And also zoom lenses to photograph the birds, yes. Yes.
So would you say that all year round is a good time to see birds in the Galapagos? Or is there one better time than another?
Well, it depends on what species. For example, if you want to see albatrosses, don't come in February or March because you have a very low chance to see them. Okay, you have a better chance to see them in April because then is when they start arriving to start a nesting period again. Okay, blue-footed boobies are opportunistic breeders, so we don't know when they are going to nest. If the waters are cold, for sure they are going to try. Red-footed boobies are always there in Genovese, and frigate birds as well. So they are always there to see. And when you go to the west, for sure, you are not going to miss either the penguins or the flightless cormorants. You are going to get to see them. But if you want to see them reproducing, better come during the colder months, which is from more or less May to September, right? Which is where the water is coldest and the waters are more productive.
Great, thank you. Now, are the blue-footed boobies and a red-footed booby, are they able to interbreed?
To interbreed, no. No, I mean, they cannot crossbreed, if that was your question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for covering that.
No, not at all. They don't nest in the same areas, and they have very different color of feet, and so they don't like each other.
That is good to know. So, do you know how the El Nino effect could affect bird populations this winter?
Let's see, because the projection is that we are going to have a strong El Nino, but these projections are not always accurate. But if we look at the very strong El Ninos of 1982, 1983, and 1997, 1998, and if this event is going to be similar to that, then yes, And so what happens during El Nino is that basically the water gets warmer and gets stagnant because of the lack of winds. And so that means that nutrients, go deep to the seafloor and they are not recycled back to the surface. And as a result of this, there is no nutrients for the production of plankton, which is the base of the food web. And so if these events are going to be very long, then they are going to, yes, affect the populations because of the lack of food. And most seabirds are going to suffer.
Great, thank you. So are the islands barren? Are all of them? Do they have a lot of trees, or is there very little vegetation?
That's a very good question, and that really depends on the season and also on the altitude of the islands, okay? And so the coastal zone generally is very dry. And so on the back of the coastal zone, you are going to see we have the dry zone. We call it the dry zone. So during the colder months, that's going to be almost brown, okay? Because a lot of the leaves fall, okay? And so it looks very, very dry. But during the months of January, February, and March, and April, that changes because of the fresh water that we get from the rain, okay? And that sometimes is a problem because the vegetation grows so much that birds don't have a place to nest, okay? And that happens, for example, with wave albatrosses and blue-footed boobies that like to nest on barren ground.
Great, thank you for addressing that question. So if I wanted to see penguins, is there a better time of year to come to the Galapagos? And is there what time of year do they actually breed and have babies?
Yes, and so the best months will be from May to December, more or less, okay? May to December because that's when they reproduce. So you are going to have a good chance to see them also, the juveniles, sometimes very rarely the nests. It's very rare to see that, but you can see the juveniles and the adults. Yes, the colder months. And so come from May to more or less November or December and go to the west, okay? The west itinerary is the one that offers the best options to see them.
Sounds good, thank you. So are there any efforts being made to recover bird populations down in the Galapagos?
Yes, and so the most important one is to reduce human impacts. And so, for example, in islands where we have introduced predators, unfortunately, like San Cristobal, we are going to control for the population of rats or cats close to the nesting locations. There are other eradication efforts in islands like Floriana, where they are going to restore the whole island, and they are now putting poison to kill the rats first. Okay, and so this is a process that is happening as I speak. So yes, we are doing a lot of things.
Great, that is so great to hear. Well, unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you for any more closing comments you have for us.
That coming to Galapagos is very important for seabirds because when you come to the Galapagos and when you come with us, you help us protect nature. So please come and join us. That's from my side, bro.
Luis, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. Now, if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.